Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining today's webinar on biometric reader comparison, fingerprint, iris, facial, and more. My name is Kelsey Burke, and I'm the product manager for OEM Solutions for Software House. Today with me on the call, I have Ashley Tusignot. She's our senior product manager for access control, along with Rick Foki, our director of product management for access control. We will be discussing biometric high level, along with some of our various products we have currently and coming to our portfolio. A few housekeeping notes as we move forward. The webinar is in listen-only mode, so if you have any questions, we will be taking them throughout the presentation. Please just add the questions using the GoToWebinar control panel on the right. The webinar is being recorded, so a link will be sent to all the attendees after the webinar concludes for today. So moving along, I think it's important to discuss what biometric security is. So within access control, biometric security refers to the authentication techniques that rely on measurable, unique physical
Hey, Kelsey, you're breaking up a little bit.
characteristics that can be automatically checked, which will then allow entrance to a secure area within a building. Rick?
Okay.
Are you guys able to hear me?
Okay, now we are. Yeah, sorry about that, audience here. I think you were breaking up a little bit, Kelsey. But yeah, we're on the multi-factor slide.
Oh, apologies.
Want me to chime in? Go ahead.
Sure. So here you can see that there are many varieties of multi-factor authentication. As we dive deeper into the biometric portfolio, you'll be able to see these authentication methods supported by our products. Rick, I don't know if you want to say a few words on some of the enhanced security shown here on the screen.
Well, yeah, this is one of the big decisions to make when choosing a product is, will you be using it in a single factor mode or multi-factor mode? Because some of the units don't have multi-factor functionality and some do. If you need that extra security, then be sure to choose one that has the card plus the biometric, for example, card plus fingerprint, card plus face. With the new secure two-factor authentication, you can actually add a second factor easily through your mobile phone to any of these biometrics, the facial or the fingerprint. So that really gives you a nice, more efficient way to add that second factor. But yeah, there are a lot of choices. So you have to do that planning up front before you go into the selection process.
Wonderful. Okay. Thanks. So next here we have our contactless biometrics. So even though we're seeing fingerprint as still being a more prominent method for authentication in the biometric space, with recent pandemics, the COVID-19 pandemic that we're currently in, as well as just over the course of the year, we've seen the need for contactless biometrics. So here you can see some of the offerings that we'll dive a little bit deeper into as we move along. So our IDEMIA Morpho product, as well as our homegrown Illustra, just to name a few. All the products that are currently in our portfolio require integrations into our Secure 9000 platform. So they do come through our partner program. We do require that the biometric product be integrated. This way it provides a seamless connection for the access control into various sites. So as you can see here, just a typical biometric integration setup. With our fingerprint, palm vein, iris, and facial. Again, you'll see the various key features as we move through our product offering that dives a little bit deeper into an embedded integration versus a semi-embedded as it pertains to our integration into Secure 9000 system.
One update for those that have good eyes here. You notice in the field between the biometric reader and the access control panel, we show weakened. Nowadays, you want to look for OSTP for that interface. So in the subsequent slides, you'll find out which units specifically do support that encrypted OSTP link. So, okay.
Great. So I'm going to pick it up from here, Rick. Before we dive into the security market as a whole, I kind of wanted just to cover the biometric market and where the trends are tracking on that side. So as you can see, by 2024, it's basically looking to double to 65 billion. And a lot of this is attributed to the increasing use of biometrics in consumer electronics. So most notably your cell phone, right? Everybody is getting used to either fingerprint, facial, or what have you to get into their personal cell phone devices. So, the trend is really moving to focus on the safety and security in the private and business sectors, that consumer electronics, and then also the government initiatives to adopt biometrics is a growing trend there as well. Another thing that was noted was that voice recognition is growing in the financial sector. So that's something that we haven't really seen much of on the access side, but definitely something to think about in the future. And they also brought up that software is playing a pivotal role in ensuring the interoperability between the different devices. So as more electronics are trying to get to cloud-based services and use AI for biometric devices, they want to make sure that the software is compatible between all of the devices and operating systems that it's applied to.
Hey, just for comparison, actually you mentioned $33 billion is the market for overall biometrics. Our physical security access control market globally is only 4 billion. That's including panels and software and cards and readers. So you can see how huge this market is, and that's what's really helping to drive biometrics into our market.
Right. Yes. And on the next slide, you're going to see, this is more geared towards the biometric security landscape. And in this sense, we're going through units sold per year. So this is 2019 information. And as Kelsey had mentioned earlier, obviously fingerprints technology is the lion's share of the market, but we are seeing a growing trend in facial recognition, especially as people are looking for contactless biometric options. That's definitely a priority move. So today it's around 6% of the market on the security side, but it's expected to grow to over 35% in the next year. So access control facial recognition market is roughly 40 million today. But overall, the facial market for surveillance is roughly 5 billion. So it's definitely lots of room for growth. And like you said, Rick, 4 billion out of, the potential of 60 is, big piece of the pie there. We can continue to adopt more biometric options. Okay, so yeah, so there's a lot to think about in speccing a biometric order. What how do you choose? And obviously in the software house side, we carry a lot of different options, and we'll get into each of those as we go through the deck, but a lot of things to balance, right? There's trade-offs. So you have cost, reliability, integration. Are you looking for an embedded integration into Secure? Or is it okay if there's external software that's going to be needed as well? You also have to think of privacy and local laws. That comes up into the decision-making process as well. We even found with facial recognition, one of our trade shows, we had to be careful about the surveillance cameras working for our facial recognition. So you got to be careful where it's being implemented and what local laws to abide to there. And then another thing to think about here is it for, what is your implementation here for? Are you looking for, biometrics and pure convenience, right? So basically you don't want facial, you don't want to have people pause at readers and also present a card, or are you looking for card and bio, where you'll need that second layer of additional security? So things for highly secure, highly restricted areas such as data centers. And also to think about is, what do you care about where the templates are stored? Is it template on card desired, because there's certain solutions that offer that, or is it okay if it's stored on the local device? So these are all items to think about. And then here's just a quick look. We're going to be touching upon all of these. I think there's 7, right? Yep, 7 total of partners. So some of these are internal, right? Illustra and Identy are sister brands to Software House, but we also have a great OEM portfolio as well. And we carry everything from facial to fingerprint and everything in between. So face, the analysis of your facial characteristics, great option if you're looking for contactless. Palm Vein is also a contactless option. We do carry a Jade and Sapphire reader from Identy. So that is the analysis of the pattern of the veins in both your hand and wrist. Iris is a great solution. I mean, we're thinking about not only is it contactless, but in this day and age when you're required to wear masks in most locations, that's not going to affect this particular performance. So that's a great option as well. We'll get into Iris ID. And then fingerprint, pretty much, most of our OEM partners have a fingerprint solution, and we'll dive into some of the differences between a touch fingerprint reader and then something more like our MorphoWave compact, where you just non-touch swipe your hand through the unit. So these are all good questions to take a look at and think about when you're speccing orders, and we're going to dive into each of those in a little more detail now. So Rick, I'm going to let you take over on Illustra Insight.
Hey, thanks, Ashley. Yeah, so I'm back. I said I closed the front door. The guy started his lawnmower up just now, of course, right? During a webinar, that's when sounds happen. So anyway, so yeah, first up here is our soon to be released brand new facial recognition solution called Illustra Insight. Okay, as you know, Illustra is a sister brand of ours on the camera side, and these folks have developed a purpose-built access control facial recognition camera. So it's like a reader and a camera put together, basically. The design here is basically a 2-piece setup where you have a separate camera sensor, camera module, if you will, that is connected to the control unit or the camera guts through a separate, it's not Ethernet, it's just a separate Cat5 cable. So your actual Ethernet connection is on the secure side of the space. You're not having Ethernet on the outside. Okay, so that's a really big consideration for access control. It does have artificial intelligence, deep learning algorithms embedded. We trained the unit on millions of faces. We're constantly training it. The accuracy, the bar is set high. If you're doing face only, you better really be sure that is the person that's entering. Okay, that's why we set the false acceptance rate, the FAR, to a super low value here. Then we try to keep the false reject rate, low as well. But that's, in my opinion, not as important as a low false accept rate. You don't want to let bad guys in, basically. Okay. But yeah, the camera's installed at about a 5-foot height, so it gets a nice wide angle of the approaching scene for the door. And there's actually 2 cameras inside the unit, one optical and one infrared. And by combining those, it maps like a 3D topography of the approaching personnel to make sure they are alive and they aren't just somebody presenting a piece of paper or even a video playback of a person instead to try to spoof it. So, and all these sensors, biometric readers here, spoofing, it's an issue. You have to make sure the units can guard against that. So, yeah, you'll have a lot more information coming out. I believe the launch is looking like the end of this month for this unit. Okay. And it will have, of course, a nice embedded secure integration. Here's the setup and a typical door. You have your satellite module here. What's nice is you see the ring around the outside. That's controlled the same way as a reader. So you have that same user experience as if you have a standard soft reader there. Green is access grant, red is access denied. We have a few extra colors. Blue is we recognize a person, but those are all controlled from the iStar. It feeds the signals back to the camera for those LEDs. So you have your sensor, and here's your control unit with your Ethernet connection. And then the actual algorithms for the face comparisons are done on a separate server here that can handle up to 16 of these camera control units. Okay, and once the template match is made, the control unit then sends back to the iStar an OSTP or a Wiegand signal just as if it's a regular reader. Okay, so your whole iStar infrastructure is kept in place here. And then of course it gets back to secure for the activity that happens at those units. Okay, that's the architecture. And then finally, I mentioned the deep embedded integration. Well, you go to the personal record of secure and you start adding portraits, right? Now, for the best performance, okay, you can put in up to 5 portraits, okay, front, left, right, up, down, all different directions there. It will operate with 1 portrait. You won't get as good of performance, but we are doing further tests and it's actually coming out really good. So stay tuned for that. But you can see all you have to do is get the portraits loaded. You see this facial checkbox here. That means that yes, they're being used to create a facial template. And at that point, when you hit save, it's sent down to the facial servers. Okay, not the actual pictures, but they send down, it's about an 8K hash of that picture. It's a template. And that's what's stored locally. So there's no personal information in those remote facial servers there. Okay, so again, it's being launched in the end of this month, and we're looking for early adopter sites. So please get back to me if you're interested to be one of the first on the block to have one. We'll work with you to get it set up, and we'd love to get your feedback on it. But it has been on about 10 pilot sites so far in the last 6 months with very good results. So it's going to be a real winner for us. Okay. Oh, and also you need 2.8 Service Pack 1, for this integration to work. Okay.
And Rick, before you move on to Inometrics, we have a quick question on the Illustra Insight. Are there any degraded mode capabilities?
Not at this point. No, that's on our roadmap. Right now, that facial server does need to be online for that access to take place. Okay. What we do recommend is, keeping these things on the local subnets directly attached to the Illustra control units. There's also a smaller server size that can handle up to 4. So if you only have a few units, get the small server and just make sure it's on the same subnet as that camera control unit. Okay, any other questions?
Cost of the unit?
The cost. Yeah, you did see the $4 signs. We don't really want to give out MSRP here, but it is comparable. It's not like 10 times higher than other typical units. It's in the standard ballpark for a facial solution. It's more than a Wiegand prox reader, let's put it that way, but it's comparable to other facial solutions we'll be looking at for the portfolio. Sorry for that non-answer there. I should go into politics, right? But yeah, you can follow up with the area sales managers, for the specific pricing. And the secure integration is free. How's that? Okay, let's move on to our Idenmetrics brand of biometric readers. Idenmetrics, as many of you know, is an acquisition about 4 years ago for Software House. They were very heavy into the government authentication space, which is heavily reliant on fingerprints. Okay, especially with the FIPS 201 credentials, you know, for PIV, for TWIC, for CAC, you know, that's their wheelhouse. Okay, it's their strong suit. But we are seeing adoption of that data model into other markets, and the readers can do more than government. Okay, these are nice standard biometric readers that support OSTP, okay, for the panel integration, and they even support the traditional RM reader protocol, okay, which means you'll see the same display as you do on an RM reader, you know, the same types of custom messages, the same types of input and output supervision, okay? So they're very flexible. That's their main attribute here. You can put them into FICAM mode, you can put them into RM mode, you can buy them with a contact reader for government or without the contact reader for regular use. And, you know, they do one-to-end fingerprint verification. One of the key points is the template storage. You know, 10,000 on the unit is pretty high. I mean, there's some products that are more, but that will support the bulk of your customers. And they do come in, you know, different price points. You know, we do have the $3 signs here, but you know, the Cheetah SE, that's a non-fingerprint model, but its brother, the Cheetah SE Bio, just came out 2 months ago, and that's a nice lower cost option for fingerprint. Okay. And the integration of Secure, you know, it's our own brand here, so we're making sure that we do have a nice integration right into Secure. So for the government market, the card is enrolled and harvested. The information from the card is populated right into Secure. For commercial customers, we do have an enrollment option as well. If I just, in fact, enroll on an iClass card, you know, enroll the template, prints onto the iClass card, then that can be used as your credential for these readers. So, and it's a good option to consider if you're starting new with fingerprint. Okay. And move on to Identitech. Who's taking over this one?
That's me, Rick. Yeah. So
okay.
let's look at Identitech. So Identitech is one of our third-party partners. They were founded back in 2010. They are an Israeli-based company, but they moved their headquarters over to Miami, Florida recently. So great local stateside support now. Their portfolio covers fingerprint, palm vein, and most recently their facial recognition offering as well. So the fingerprint readers have been solid performers for the last several years for us. They're called the IDT terminals. So they use multispectral imaging technology. So this is a leading tested option through NIST, if you're familiar with that. And then the palm vein readers are their sapphire and jade units, and you can see one of them in the diagram below in the picture right there, the sapphire. That is a non-touch technology, so that is, you know, the study of the veins in the palm and wrist. It's hygienic and non-spoofable, right? So it's going to look at the patterns, but it's also doing a true liveness detection. So it's checking the red blood cells and oxidation as well. It's part of the algorithm. And then their most recent is their facial recognition, which you can see in the screenshot in the top, which I believe they call the gatekeeper. So we do have several Secure 9000 sites utilizing that new facial recognition, and you know, we'll be having a formal launch for that in the next quarter. That's their moderately priced option. Again, you know, we're trying to be fair across the board. For any specifics on pricing, you know, contact your local ASM. They'll be able to provide that. But overall, it's a good option. They keep up to date with all of their regulatory, and they do have OSDP for all new products coming later this year. So one other thing just to note is they are, one of the solutions that is great for enterprise expansion, and they have a clean embedded integration. So on the next slide, Rick, we're gonna get into that a little bit further. So here you can actually see one of the screenshots. They have been one of the partners that have been really excellent about not only keeping up to date with the most recent Secure software, but also working along with our engineering team to ensure that their integration is very clean and user-friendly to somebody who's very familiar with the Secure software. So all of their terminals or their biometric readers communicate with Secure 9000 through TCP/IP. And that's allowing them to be able to receive the real-time monitoring and events and to manage the personnel records. But you can also update the terminal settings through there as well. And then, as you see in the line below in orange, the weekend is how they interface with our iStar controllers. So there's no additional configuration needed. There's no additional software that needs to be put on. Everything can be done right within Secure, which is really how, that's the most desirable option for us and what we intend to have with all of our solutions. So definitely a great option to look at there. Also for the facial, the primary personnel image is imported to their facial recognition engine automatically. So when you save that personnel record, so you don't even need to do a re-enrollment as long as the photo is meeting the minimum quality requirements they have. So that's an interesting feature coming. And overall, Identitech is a great partner of ours. And, like I said, they have both fingerprint, palm vein, and facial. So kind of running the board here of options for you to be able to use in projects.
It's nice to have that enrollment feedback right there. Make sure it's a good enrollment, that green checkbox.
Yes, yeah, definitely. To have the visual. I'm not sure if we got any specific questions on Identitech, but if not, we can move into the next one.
We do not. We can move along.
Okay. All right. So I just wanted to also cover our Iris ID ICAM 7S series. So that's a mouthful. They are our only OEM offering for Iris at this time. They've been in the market for over 20 years. They're pretty established. You'd probably have seen their units at airports and government facilities if you've gone there as well. Some of the reasons behind this is that the iris is truly one of the most unique attributes you can use. There's over 240 biometric feature points that they can use when writing an algorithm for that. So it also helps avoid the common pitfalls that people have, like identical twins, because even your two irises don't exactly match one another. So really just an interesting feature. You got to weigh the pros and cons here. It is a non-contact, so it's hygienic. You could wear a mask, which is also a great selling point, especially in the year 2020 here. But some people do have concerns about looking into an iris scanner. It's also not, it's not something that you can do like facial recognition where you can be walking at a normal clip and get accepted and go through. It's something that you actually have to look into. As you can see in the screenshot here, they have colored dots to indicate, if you need to come closer or you're at the proper distance. So it's that 15 to 36 inch range that you need to capture. But they do have multi-factor authentication available as well. So you can use a built-in HID read head. So some options there as well. And just like Identitech, they do see the value of OSDP and they intend on offering that later in the year. So not as clean as the Idenmetrics or Identitech integrations. They have not gone through and done the embedded integration into Secure. So we are hoping to have that in the future, but as you can see from this diagram, it's not as clean. They do use an Iris Access IA import software, which is on their end. And then it's basically just a real-time database synchronization in that dotted box area of how you're synchronizing those personnel records into Secure 9000. We also are lagging a little bit behind. So their current rev is with Secure 9000 2.7 right now. So we are waiting to get an update shortly on their 2.8 option being added to the matrix. So definitely it's an interesting option if an iris scanner is fitting for the project at hand, and masks are required, or definitely a hygienic approach. There's no contact there, so it's a good solution. It's just we're hoping in the future we get a better integration option there.
Yeah, I think we see a lot of iris for healthcare, hospitals.
Yes. There's a lot of labs that will need to have several options. It will be like card, PIN, biometric, and iris biometric. There'll be like so many things on one door. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of, because there's actually a good amount of Secure 9000 customer base that are also using Iris ID even well before we added them to our portfolio. So it is something that even before we had this version of the integration, people were utilizing. It's like I said, they've been in the field for 20 years, so it's pretty prevalent.
Right. Okay. Moving on to Suprema.
Yes, thank you, Ashley and Rick. So moving on to our Suprema biometric offering, so is facial and fingerprint readers. If you could move to the next slide. So here you can see the full product offering that we currently support for the Suprema BioConnect. However, today, just to streamline the presentation a little bit, I will be focusing more on the FaceStation 2, which is their facial biometric offering, as well as their new BioLite N2 reader, which is their new fingerprint reader. So the FaceStation 2 can not only manage face, but also multi-authentication using a PIN, as well as a card along with facial. Currently, FaceStation 2 does support OSDP 2.1.6, whereas the BioLite N2 is a fingerprint reader, and currently right now they're going through testing for OSDP support. So that should be coming out shortly for that fingerprint reader. Some of the attributes to both of these, as you can see here, are in regards to the log capacity. So on the FaceStation 2, you have 5 million versus the BioLite N2, which has a log capacity of 1 million. Another thing to note here, template capacity. So if you're considering, getting back to what Ashley was mentioning before, as you're speccing a site, if template capacity on the actual unit is an issue, the FaceStation is able to hold a capacity of 30,000, whereas your BioLite N2, not only is it fingerprint, but it also will hold, 10,000 template capacity. Right. Both of these are IP67 rated, so durable, nice options for sure. On the next slide, we get into.
I'll point out one thing,
sure.
Kelsey. I think it's important to discuss these differences in template capacity here. For those that don't know, it's a big difference between a one-to-one match. That's an easy match, right? That's when you first present your card, so you know what template to match up to with the live image. That's why they have the 30,000 capacity here. But if you do a one-to-many match, so you don't have a card first, you're just looking at the real-time face image, you have to compare it to all the other possible templates, well, then it's only 3,000. And the reason is because if you have more, it's going to take forever. to scan through all those templates in the unit and try to match up the exact match, the closest match to those templates. So that's why you'll see the reduced specs here on the 1 to N. So just be careful on the specs on these units, you know, and each vendor is different in how they, you know, list out their specs here. I mean, here you have 500,000 on a 1-to-1, right? The BioStation 2. But look, it's only 20,000 templates when you're trying to match the live template against all possible templates. Again, it's mainly because of the processing time. It's just unacceptable, you know, to match 1 to N with 500,000. Okay, sorry for interrupting.
No, thank you. Great information, Rick. So here you can see that Suprema's integration is an embedded software integration into our Secure 9000 platform. So this lends to a fast user synchronization. So the enrollment is all done within the Secure 9000 administration workstation here through an enrollment button as depicted on the screen. You can see to the left of the screen kind of the path of integration there and where it's syncing. So currently they are supported as an embedded integration starting at version 2.6 and all the way through our most recent 2.8 release of Secure. So this is another example of a partner that has an embedded integration into our Secure 9000 platform, causing, you know, seamless integration, fairly priced in regards to our biometric offering. Really a great option if you're looking for that embedded seamless integration.
I think there's only one thing to note. They do have software, I think it's called BioStar, and that is if you need to get into any of the readers to do any setting changes for the devices. So that differs a little bit from like the Identy tech where you can even change set readers all from within Secure. So just a little bit of a difference there, but that would be the only reason why you would need the other software added if you're going to change something from the factory sold settings that it comes with.
Yeah, good point.
Great, thank you. So next up we have our IDEMIA product offering. So this is fingerprint and contactless fingerprint. So here we can see in the upper right image is the MorphoWave Compact. This is their contactless fingerprint reader that Ashley was mentioning earlier. So you would just simply wave your hand under the terminal and the reader picks up 4 fingerprints, and it does this in less than a minute for authentication. Another great thing to note about this unit is here you can see that it's a desktop unit. However, there is an optional tower interface that can be added to make it a standing or standalone unit on a site. And some of the attributes here, so one of the great benefits to this MorphoWave Compact is the efficiency. So whether your fingers are dry or wet, damaged, it has a really great authentication rate when coming into those different environmental situations. The other product that we have featured here is the MorphoAccess Sigma. So this series of reader implements no fewer than 20 patents to master biometric identification. So this reader is a really intuitive design and is really intended for fast user adoption. So it provides that unique experience or user experience. It has a tablet-like user feature. As you can see, it's the image to the left here on the screen. Really great for anti-fraud. So fake finger detection, duress fingers, etc. This integration is also at the software level and is embedded into our Secure 9000 platform. You can see there is a QR code on the screen, so if you'd like additional pamphlets or material, you can go ahead and, we'll be sending this presentation along after the webinar concludes today. You can go ahead and scan the QR code for additional data sheets and specs, but some of the main things to point out here is not only is it fully supported as an embedded solution, but they are one of our partners that is very diligent in keeping up with our most current versions of the software. So they are integrated up to version 2.8. This has been a supported integration on their end since their MorphoManager 12.6.4 version. The embedded enrollment button, what this allows in this particular scenario is the end user to initiate the process via the button within the admin station. Enrollment and everything is done within Secure. And having that software connection, so their BioBridge connection, eliminates the need for dual entry of a cardholder database. You can also manage clearances through Secure with the integration here, along with expiry and card disablement can all be managed through Secure. So really a nice, robust integration.
It's interesting that the clearances are part of the equation. That means that these guys are more efficient and they'll send the templates down to only the units that need it because the card had or the person has a clearance that includes that unit. Other integrations will send everybody everywhere. So it's nice, extra efficient attribute here to point out.
Kelsey,
yes.
Question came in. Did they hear that right? It wasn't. Oh, it couldn't have been a 1 minute read time on the IDEMIA unit. Can you go back a slide and?
Oh, I think it's 1 second. Yeah.
Yeah, it should be one second.
1 second. Did I?
50 people per minute. There we go.
There we go.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Person. And then if you have like a turnstile application, right? They've done some tests where you can really get people going through here pretty quick.
Yeah, they're turnstile applications, definitely. So they're used to a good flow. We tested it as well. And the beauty of having 4 fingerprints or up to 4, right? You've got a lot of options. So, if somebody, is missing a finger or anything like that, it can continue and read the rest of them flying through the reader. And again, contactless technology there.
Yes, thank you for the correction. I apologize, I spoke there.
Okay. I think this is our last one that we're going to spotlight.
Yes, so last but certainly not least here is our StoneLock facial reader. So StoneLock as a company is an opt-in faceless recognition technology solution. So it's intentionally designed, which is kind of cool. It's intentionally designed to protect the user identities. So by safeguarding the privacy, there's no photographs used. They have a certain algorithm, which you can see here in the special attributes, the identity care, which actually takes and replaces the face with a mathematical representation. So the StoneLock solution doesn't actually store any images, which is kind of a unique feature. So if you have a spec where maybe they're looking to do something contactless, but they're not too keen on having their personal data, such as their face, stored within a unit, this may be a good option. So currently, right now, we do have the StoneLock Pro Reader in our portfolio offering. However, featured here is their new StoneLock Go, which will be launching in the next couple weeks for them. And then shortly after, we'll be showcasing this in our portfolio as well. So this is just their next generation of a biometric reader. And some, key features outside of the identity care, which is kind of unique to StoneLock in general, is the simplified enrollment. So you can actually utilize a QR code or a card swipe, and an easy read display shows up to guide you through a simple touchless self-enrollment process. So really kind of, you know, hands off, which is nice. The next slide speaks to their integration. So they are currently just wrapping up their integration. So this will be a new integration into Secure 2.8. It is, and I guess I would call this a semi-embedded. So, and what that means is the enrollment can be managed through Secure when you're using card and face. However, when you're just enrolling face only, it does require a single click inside the StoneLock interface on the user's profile to then enroll. So that's what I would call kind of, you know, semi-embed here. However, it's integrated with their new Gateway version 3 software, which is a fully secured, seamless movement of biometric templates across all of their units. So as I mentioned, you know, embedded at version 2.8, and we'll be launching, you know, when we add this product to our portfolio.
Okay.
So we covered a lot of ground today regarding biometric security. So I wanted to just give a quick snapshot of, again, the products that are in our portfolio, as well as, you know, coming to our portfolio in StoneLock's case here. But here you just see the Tyco products, our Illustra Insight and Inometric, as well as the Identy IDT readers that Ashley discussed, and the Morpho and Suprema units as well.
I think it's a great time to pause for questions. Ashley, do we have any more that have come in?
Don't see any questions yet, but we'll give people a minute. We have a couple minutes, so we'll see if a couple of them come in. I wanted to bring up one other point I thought about that MorphoWave unit. It's always been a kind of a crowd pleaser at the trade shows, especially, right? But one of the interesting things is that you actually need a MorphoWave compact to enroll on the device, because it's taking a different fingerprint image than if you were to press down your fingerprint on an enrollment reader, because that would be expanding your scan and it would distort the image of what that fingerprint looks like. So I just thought that was an interesting thing to note, that their technology is using a fingerprint that's been untouched, right? Play on words there. Okay, we do have a few questions coming in. So the first one is, what technology would you think has the highest authentication versus failure rates in the field for the various bio units?
Yeah, that's a good one. I think facial is still too new to really stack up against the traditional biometrics, but that's, you know, that's going to be a big player. Well, we'll have to get back to you on that one. I believe it's fingerprint. You know, of all the tried and true, especially the MorphoWave, that's like 4 fingerprints. If you have a full scan, you're comparing 4 fingerprints at once, and that's, I think, at the top of the charts.
Yeah, and obviously for higher authentication, well, iris is up there as well. But you know, if you're doing a factor, right, card and fingerprint, or then you're obviously putting up your authentication rate much higher.
That's a good question. It would be nice to compare the false accept and the false reject rates, you know, of each technology and stack them up. You know, and that's a major factor in the decision-making process.
Yep. Okay. Any of the bio readers offer a degraded mode capability, specifically the facial recognition readers?
Yeah. What kind of mode is that?
They said degraded mode capability.
Oh, degraded. Okay. Right.
Yeah, I believe you can. Is it on Identitech or Suprema? I believe you can even put your percentage down of what you accept as a quality template. I would assume it's the same for the facial recognition readers as well.
Yeah, well, it depends if the question is the degraded mode because the camera can't talk to the server. The other units are more or less self-contained, where the templates and the matching is all done in that same unit.
Oh yeah, he's agreeing with you. No connection to a server.
Right. So those things are, considered, all in one standalone units. It just output a weekend at the end of the day when the match is done. The downside there is that, all your templates and your, network connection in most cases is on the outside of the building or the outside of the secure area. So, that's why that Insight unit in its local design has that two-piece thing going on. So your database, your network connection is all on the secure side. And yeah, it's on our roadmap to get rid of that facial server at some point, is make the things, super standalone. In fact, make it part of an iStar. Who knows? We got a lot of ideas that are, being discussed here.
Okay. So this one's a tough one, Rick. If a client asks you directly, which is the best facial technology, how do you objectively reply to that with so many offerings?
Easy, Illustra Insight.
Yeah.
No, I was going to say easy. We've really only got 2 that are in the portfolio today, right? There's a lot coming.
Well, yeah, I think that's sort of the point of this presentation is there's no one simple answer. The answer is it depends. Do you need security over convenience? Do you need, single factor, 2-factor? Do you have existing, portraits that are available for face? What are your lighting conditions? What are your environmental conditions? Yeah, it's really not a single answer. As far as sales, we can say that Fingerprint is the leader, just like Ashley's market graph showed. That could be changing because of COVID. The idea of contactless is really becoming strong. I've even seen, in fact, we had a COVID webinar a few weeks ago where we had some other contactless new technologies, even like contactless door handle pulls and, the ability to use handy waves for switches without touching. Anything you can do that prevents a touch is more acceptable these days.
Yeah. The only other one I see is, are there any hardware or software training options? So we definitely have associated manuals for whatever's available in the portfolios today. You'll find data sheets and things like that. But if you need, depending on what particular product you're looking for, we'll see Bark on this webinar is our OEM product manager will be able to get that for you. Somebody also said, I see some of the marketing pictures show the Morpho being used from a car. What is the reliability of the reads during weather events such as rain, snow, dusty conditions? So I'm not sure what reader was that it was showing. Oh,
this one, right?
The car. I see right there on the page.
Right, yeah, the Wave Compact.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to tell from that picture. It might be over a, under a slight overhang there. The surface itself is non-touch, but you're right. If there got to be dust or something on there, I'm sure you would have to clean it off like any other glass surface. But in that particular case, it might be in a garage. Yeah.
No, it is rated for outside temperatures, but yeah, I think there's just some practical considerations you have to keep in mind. Yeah, put it under a awning or a kiosk or something. Okay, and Yeah, if there's any other types of biometric readers you think we should look at offering, please contact us. We're always looking for new ideas and ways to improve the portfolio. We'd love to sell a complete access control solution at Software House, and the biometric readers are a growing part of that portfolio now.
Wonderful. Thank you. Well, I just want to take the last minutes here to thank everyone again for attending today's webinar. Thank you, Rick and Ashley, for presenting here with me today. We have, of course, we're going to be sending out the webinar recording, but if you have any questions that come up, please feel free to reach out to us. That webinar recording will include mine, Ashley, and Rick's contact information. So please feel free to send any additional questions that you have directly to us.
Good, thank you.
Great. Thanks, everyone.
Wonderful. Thanks, everyone.